So, hey guys, this is Karen. I'm a UX designer who's currently working for the Yum Brands right now, which is a holding company for KFC, Pizza Hut, and Taco Bell. So today I'm actually here to present to you guys about making informed UX decisions in Agile specifically. So overall here at Yum Dev, which is a team I belong to under Yum Brands, my UX process on a high level starts from ideation and then review and then several rounds of iteration before we can, finally decide which one is the approved version to hand off to developers for implementation in code. So if you guys are familiar with the double diamond framework, my work here is definitely more focused on the second diamond here, while another pod in Yum Dev is handling all the initial user research and coordinate with me. However, it's still very important for UX designers, or at least in my process, to make sure that I adopt, proper decision-making methods and proper user research along this process I'm presenting over here. So overall, I have a list of methodologies that I typically use, but this presentation, given that we have limited time, I'm going to focus on talking about usability testing. So what was the context about my initial challenge? So last month, I was assigned to this ticket and or a feature, because we use Jira to track all that stuff in Agile. But anyways, last month I was assigned to this feature to solve a problem that already have in this we're already having this in the software that we're designing. So the problem I had was, how might we actually allow refund for an individual item for a customer support agent? So as you can see on the screenshot of our previous version of the software, if the customer actually call our customer support center and say, I ordered 2 large Pepsi, but one of them is lukewarm or the ice was too much, and they want a refund from 1 out of the 2 large Pepsis ordered here, with the checkbox design over here, the customer support agent actually can't indicate how much quantity they actually want a refund out of that order on a specific item. So that was my initial challenge, just figuring out how we can allow people to refund 1 item. And then I went on my ideation process and had 5 to 6 different variations that I went to the initial round of review with our users, our developers, and TPOs. So here's what happened. The user really loved this layout, this design on the left side. But in reality, the developer needs 2 weeks to code this out, which in the Agile concept is a full sprint. And the other option on the right side takes less than a day, but the user really wasn't a fan of it. And if you look at the difference, the feature difference here, on the left side, I have a counter right next to each line item. So the customer support agent, which is a user here, they can actually just enter whatever number they want in the counter field right here, or use the arrow to increment. And there's also a feedback table on the bottom to tell them, hey, this is the calculated, machine calculated numbers, so they can actually double check against this refunded amount to make sure everything is in alignment. And on the right side, this UI2, this option 2, kind of just have more like a simplified interaction where they can open or expand a collapsed folder of the 2 bucket meal ordered, and then they can just check whichever they want to refund. So here, my challenge kind of shifted because, as you can see, 2 solutions, both of them actually solve the first challenge. They solve the user needs, right? So here, what I need to do is really how I can balance our developers' time and our project timeline, the need of moving fast in Agile while I deliver something that the users would still love, right? So first off, it's very easy for me to do this iteration of just taking that feedback calculation table down here off. Because apparently that was the bulk of the work for the 2-week timeline we saw before. So after taking that table out, the development time drastically shrank to 2 to 3 days only. However, at this point, it's still hard for me to tell if the user liked the first interface just because of subjective reasons. There's no like data or anything so far to objectively say, hey, this is actually more efficient or et cetera, right? So even though it's only like a little bit longer than the other option for our developers, I still can't say with 100% confidence that, this is gonna worsen the amount of work for our team. So luckily, I had several days left or some extra time on this ticket back then. So what I did is moving on to conduct usability testing. And if you guys haven't heard of usability testing before, it's pretty much just a method for the UX designer to mock something up in the design phase while everything is not coded yet. No development work is involved yet, but you just kind of like prototype something up that's similar to like a live coded version of the software, and you test it with a user in the early stage. So, before you waste more developers' time, you can, if it doesn't work, you can just throw it out early on. So of course, there's some prep work that I need to do for this. First, recruiting my tester, which definitely needs to fall into the user group, which is a customer support agent here. And then also I need to set up the usability testing script, which is similar to a meeting agenda. And also set up my metrics. What am I tracking? What's my purpose of conducting this usability test? And also set up a log sheet. Personally, I just prefer to use a log sheet because that helped me to document my user research data in a concise and organized way. Of course, I also need to mock up that highly prototyped interactive mockup that the users can actually click and interact as if it's the live software. So with all that prep work, it may sound like a lot, but it actually took me only like up to 2 days. So there's work, but I would say it's still doable within an Agile framework. And then what I actually did in the usability testing is I asked the same user to perform the same refund using the 2 different design options I presented before. And I actually timed them and documented their comments as qualitative data as well. So here's what happened with the first interface. Video playing. And that was it. So as you can see here, I asked them to refund 1 bucket meal, 2 large Pepsi, and 3 chocolate chip cookies. And here's what happened with the second interface. Video play. And that was it. So just by gut feelings, you guys can probably already tell the first interface was way faster than the second one. And looking at my metrics or data that I actually documented during usability testing, the user actually saved 12 seconds by using the first interface. And then based on all the data that I collected during my initial round of review with our call center, Apparently, KFC call center can get up to 67 daily call on potential refunds and missing items in the order. So that pretty much means that, excuse me, that pretty much means that if I go ahead to push for the first interface, it's going to potentially save us 13 minutes daily for our call center. And based on the video recording we just saw, issue one refund took less than a minute. So that pretty much means saving 13 minutes daily will bring us potentially 390 more monthly happier customers who actually called our call center and their complaints were handled, and a real human actually talked to them and issued their refunds. So, of course, here it's way easier for me to make the decisions because now I have the actual solid data to say, hey, this interface one is actually more efficient and will bring us long-term business gains. And even though it's taking 1 or 2 more days compared to the easier option to code, I think that's going to worsen the effort. So over here, what I've managed to do is really bridging the gap in between users and developers, and instead of just taking one solution that's convenient for one group and throw it onto the other group under the pressure of timeline. So of course, if you're constantly conducting usability testing, there's other benefits as well. For example, less rework, especially for developers. So imagine that if I weren't able to conduct that usability test and we went with the other option was a job down, then down the road, the customer support agents may actually feedback to us and say, hey, this is not working and we actually need to go back and recode all this, right? And of course, long-term user and customer trust and long-term business gains, which I bet you guys can probably already tell based on the data I just showed. So with that, that's pretty much all my presentations. We're actually pre-recording those, so there's going to be no live Q&A. But if you have any questions or you want to follow up, feel free to just find me on LinkedIn, use my name, Karen Wang. And if possible, please just include a message when you add me. That will help me process the invites faster as well. And thank you. That's all my presentation today. Hopefully that's been very informative for you.